Welcome back to the Zen State, a division of the Kolat Information Network. I am your host, Brad, and boy, did we have a bombshell dropped today. This is the article by Legend Story Studios that was written by James White, published today. Uh, they said originally this was supposed to be um, this article was supposed to go live along with World Championship and their design goals for the next 5 years of Flesh and Blood. It's the fifth anniversary on October the 11th, 2019. Uh, so the booklet that came with the design principles, the basic design principles that they built the game around was start full, which means all your heroes start at full strength and wear down over time. Reduce variance based on 100% of games are interactive. More on that in a moment. Every turn of every game plays can be made to progress the game state. Every card counts. During the course of most games, you will see every card in your deck at least once, so make sure they all count. Obviously, that's longer games, or that fits well, and rewards good decisions and not good luck. So they talk about um, which ones have held true, some that have eroded, and one that is no longer a functional design principle, but rather a statement, which is the start full, the basis of the game. All the heroes start at full strength. Reduce variance, that's the pitch system was designed for that, um, which is why that they don't want a player to not have resources. They state not all variance is bad, and in fact, they he believes that variance plays an important and positive role in game design. However, variance that results in players failing to meaningfully engage in the game is what I consider negative experience. This is often referred to as agency or the lack thereof. Fab's pitch system solved this from a resource system perspective and continues to function as a standout feature of Flesh and Blood's game experience. However, loss of agency has crept into Flesh and Blood in other ways and at levels that we view as being undesirable for the long-term health of the game. Um, every card counts. For the most part, this principle holds true. It's an archetype and/or matchup dependent, but it has been the case for a long time. We don't see every game getting to second cycle as a mandatory requirement to satisfy the principle, but we want second cycle decks to have a meaningful part of the metagame. AKA, we want control decks to be able to function, um, so they need to be able to get there. So number 4 is the one with a big section. Um, Reward good decisions, not good luck. A game of Flesh and Blood is intended to be won from incremental advantage gained through the acclamation of many good decisions. We don't see the current state of the game as having a problem rewarding good luck, but rather the accumulation of many good decisions is too frequently undermined by extreme offensive overlaps. At its simplest level, Flesh and Blood is a game of 4 card turn cycles, where each player is looking to come out ahead after smashing their 4 cards against their opponents. The quest we offer players is how to break this dynamic. The arsenal is the simplest example of how we enable players to set up these game states and create 5 versus 4 card offensive overlaps Equipment is another way. It's always been our intention to offer players ways to create offensive overlaps so that the majority of games end with a hero being reduced to zero life rather than zero cards in deck. As of late, offensive overlaps have been too extreme and too frequent to the point where the principle of achieving victory through the acclamation of many good decisions has been eroded. The most egregious culprits are bold-faced cards that immediately net additional cards without costing an action point, or are playable by heroes that are easily able to generate or bypass action points. There are many ways you can view and quantify agency. Arguments can be made that such effects such as Red in the Ledger, Warmonger's Diplomacy, Siren's Call, Arclight Sentinel, Ward board states, and even Dominate are examples of diminishing agency. I'll get to that in a moment. However, there is a massive difference between the effects that diminish or restrict agency and the topic at hand, which are extreme offensive overlaps that result in a player being reduced to zero life. There's no greater loss of agency than the game ending from forces that a player had no reasonable way to interact with. This is the most extreme loss of agency that we are looking to temper. So firstly, it's time to update the design principles that we will carry forward for the next 5 years and beyond. It's critical that we broaden these principles to cover the game's development as well, guiding the two connected but fu- independent functions that exist within the process of creating flesh and blood. So, um, uh, I'm going to make a small point here about this. I think the development side, I could be wrong here, but typically when I have dealt with the development side of games, and I have worked on 5 different CCG LCGs in my day. um, it's usually the development side, and sometimes it's the development side, and sometimes it is the design side. Um, but yes, both sides have to work together to make sure that they maintain the core principles and don't break those tenets. You still need to push cards, right? Every faction needs some cards pushed, but it's obvious that um, there needs to be some more work done in some areas. And I applaud James and the team at LSS for stepping up and saying, yes, we screwed up. We need to go back to these core principles and restructure how we do things. So for 2025, the fundamental building blocks will be action points, resource points, intellect, life, power, defense, and abilities. Pretty standard. Classes, talents, and heroes. They want to create heroes that embody the essence of their class, talent, and character. I think we have to be careful with talent because it seems like that every um, hero that has had overpowering effects or eras in this game have had a talent, whether it's shadow heroes, light heroes, or elemental heroes. Um, There obviously have been others, but I think the talent area is where we start to have degeneration for whatever reason. We want to cultivate and preserve a unique mechanical identity for each class and talent. Empowering agency. We want to curate a card pool and metagame where the players have choices that allow them to meaningfully engage with the game plan of their opponents, and victories earned through the acclamation of many good decisions. Every card counts. Curate metagames that include archetypes where every card in a deck plays a meaningful role in determining the outcome of the game. Paths to victory. Offer player strategies and card synergies that create game states slanted toward offensive advantage so that most games ends with one hero's being life total being reduced to zero. Primarily disperse offensive advantages across multiple turns rather than a single burst of output, so victories earned through acclamation of many good decisions. Require combo and one-turn kill or OTK decks to compete in meaningful, difficult quests to execute their fundamental kill turn. Examples: this includes Viscerai or Florian OTK. Well, that oh, that's interesting. Uh, Requiring many turns to establish the quantity of ruin chance required to OTK, or a Kano player completing and memorizing their pitch stack over many turns. The second part is where we get to the major announcement. It's time to remove some of the cards from the official tournament play that are the root cause enablers of extreme offensive overlaps. The following cards are banned in Classic Constructed and Blitz effective September 9th, 2024. So that is Monday. So you get the rest of this week, and if you're in Tampa for SCG Con, you will get to play these cards in Classic Constructed and Blitz without them being banned for this weekend. On Monday, they are gone forever. Art of War, Bonds of Ancestry, Cash In, Orion of Mystic Tenants, Tome of Aetherwind, Tome of Divinity, Tome of Findel, and Tome of Firebrand. The following cards are restricted in Living Legend effective September the 9th, 2024. So again, that is Monday. Bonds of Ancestry. All right, first of all, looking at this list, holy crap. I expected Bonds. I expected Art of War. Some of these others I didn't expect, but then again, we had to understand the article itself before we got started. Um, so let's go into the descriptions. So Art of War has been one of the pillars of competitive play since its printing in Arcane Rising. This has the most consequential of the cards being removed from Classic Constructed in Blitz. Some people might ask why Blood Rush Bell is okay where Art of War isn't. On the surface, they are both cards that cost one resource and trade two cards for two cards, with a power buff as the typical payoff. Art of War being generic means it has meant it has enjoyed the privilege of interacting with every additional card that's been printed since its original release in February 2020, compared to Blood Rush Bellow, which is siloed only to Brute heroes. As the card pool has expanded, numerous ways to cheat Art of War's cost have emerged, such as shadow cards that can be played from the Banish Zone, Phoenix Flames that can be returned to hand, not exactly true. Crouching Tigers that can be created in the hand. Okay, that one I'll agree with. Um, this is the Art of War fodder. Well, I guess Phoenix Flames that has been returned to hand is a legit card. So that I I could see that, but I don't think I'm paying 3 to return it to hand. So I've just wasted 3 points of damage to get there. Anyway, um, Art of War has been a suppressive force that has led to continuous divine and developments around, which also has been a notorious card for creating extreme offensive overlaps that the design and development principles are aimed at curbing. Um, there's sort of there was a part of me that kind of figured that that was going to be a card that got hit. Art of War has been powerful for a long time and for a reason, and it being played in every class made it, um, I guess, too powerful, really. Now, they left it alone for Living Legend, so you still get to break all your favorite Living Legend heroes. And so, if you've got your playset and you're playing and you enjoy playing the card, and your group has a Living Legend um, event, use it. Um, but Classic Constructed and Blitz, I kind of understand. So, Bonds of Ancestry. Um, I They admit that they thought banning yellow and blue bonds would stop Zen from being so oppressive. That didn't happen because um, um, it's still too powerful. And what I hate about this is, Bonds was a Descendant Gust Wave, Bonds of Ancestry, Dishonor. All those cards were created for Katsu. They weren't created for Zen. And but Bonds, uh, while Dishonor was egregious because it could literally blank you if you know, didn't block it. It's obvious Bonds was the problem. Um, and I hate it as a Katsu player. He was my first ninja. He was my first hero that I fell in love with. But I completely understand. Um, Now, these others are interesting. So cash in is not currently a problem, but as gold becomes more prevalent, the cost to draw two cards becomes lower and lower. And so they're going ahead and banning cash in before the time comes. So apparently they have designs in the works that are already, designed to use gold, etc. And they don't want to banning it now. Um, Allows them to continue the designs that they've already got laid out without stopping what they're doing. I get it. I hate it for Olympia because that card's kind of important. Um, Tome of Firebrand. Like Cash In, it's not a problem now. However, as the Draconic card pool grows, the quest to enable Tome of Firebrand only becomes easier. So does that sound like we're going back to Volcore next year? Certainly does, doesn't it? So Orion and Mystic Tenants. It being legendary is indicative of how we were thinking about card draw when we designed this a year ago. Part of the problem with Orion is what 12 petal Kasaya became made Orion an easily enabler a 2-for-3 exchange rather than the original design intent of a 2.33 for 3. Saying that, we are now at the point where even limited to a single copy is simply misaligned with the design principles, hence what the change is. Tome of Divinity. Um, Again, it's the um, same sort of design, um, but also it had um, other cards it could combo with. Obviously, if you get a card into your soul, then you can get it for cheaper. If you pair it with Vestige of Soul, it is better advantage. Even when compared to Orion, it's better. This is a better design card, but I will say when I remember playing against Prism and Monarch, the card was very egregious, and so yeah, the point that you double tome is just ridiculous. Tome of Findel, um, in many ways, is what card draw should look like. It consumes an action point. The problem is it's a generic status, meaning it can be played by heroes that are efficient at generating action points, such as mechanologist and lightning heroes, or able to bypass action points altogether, such as wizards. With Rosetta releasing new lightning and wizard heroes, Kano feasting on an influx of new wizard cards, and Dash.io receiving more support with her armory deck in October, the true cost of Tome of Findel and Action Point becomes easier to bypass than ever before. We've had cards that have floated around with Tome of Findel for a while. Um, I really think that it being generic is the problem. That's the one problem with the generic cards in this game, is that the generic cards, while they are designed mostly for limited, but sometimes to fix a niche in a metagame that multiple heroes can pick up, also means that if the card is busted in some way, shape, or form, it will end up showing, um, it will end up being a bigger problem than it would be if it just affected one class. All right, Tome of Aetherwind. Um, Aetherwind is a wizard card. It's reasonable according to their design principles. It consumes an action point, has a significant downside when it's drawn out of sequence, being red and 2 defense. It's also class identity. That being said, both Kano and Auxilio are easily able to bypass the real cost of the card. It sits in an awkward crossroads where it's either unplayable by Wizard that can't easily bypass the action point cost, um, Icelander, Verdant's Emperor Blaze, or it's used for the principle of doing degenerative things, Kano and Auxilio. Okay, I guess with Auxilio, you're getting more cards in hand, which means you could draw more instants, anyway. It's hard for a card of this nature to ever occupy a middle ground of doing fair things. Okay, so this is the part that I want to go over because some of this I agree with and some of this I don't. Why are Three of a Kind, Tome of a Harvest, Tome of the Arknight, and Tome of the Imperial Flame not being banned? Three of a Kind and Tome of Harvest both have natural limiters built into them, preventing multiple copies of themselves being played in the same turn, and or impose constraints on the volume of cards that can be thereafter be played. Okay, I agree with that with Tome of Harvest. I was playing Tome of Harvest in in Blitz with Briar. I knew she was LLing this weekend, so I took her to Magnolia Games in Huntsville. I didn't play the card once. I ended up pitching it uh, mostly for Chinomount Heroic, but also for other 3 resource turns. Never used it for anything else because it was so hard to set up. 3 of a kind. Now, if you're so Lexi, when there was a time when Lexi was extremely powerful in Classic Constructed with 3 of a kind. It made it very difficult if you built your deck correctly for it and sequenced things correctly. It made it very difficult for that to fail. Um, of not being able to play it and draw 3 arrows. Now, it does have variance involved, but what made that particular version of Lexi difficult was um, you can play um, pumps like Rain Razors um, out of your hands with the card on the stack or on the chain before you draw your 3 cards. If you have at least 1 arrow in, now you're particularly with Voltaire, you can go wide and tall at the same time. Um, and sure, sometimes you end up drawing a card that doesn't fit, but you draw 2 arrows and a blue pitch, so you're golden. So that one is difficult for me to go, but I also understand. That one's a little harder to swallow, but I still think be careful about that one. Tome of the Arknight has enough positive variance built in for us to be comfortable letting it stay. Now, obviously, um, even with your deck 50-50, I can tell you playing Briar this weekend, I was running 20 non-attacks, 20 attacks, and there were hands that I sometimes drew that were 4 non-attack actions. It happens. Um, Tome of the Imperial Flame. This one is question mark. Imposes a high deck construction burden. Comes with a defensive vulnerability. I agree with that. And more importantly, does not net cards outside of a few Phoenix Flame interactions that currently exist. Should there become more ways to return Phoenix Flames to hand or similar red fodder generators, it's possible that this card may need to join the other forbidden books of Wraith. Um, I think right now it's like the only 2 decks that were playing this. Dromai played it before she was LL'd, and I know the Emperor plays this. Um, but I do like the fact that they've caveated it, and yes, this one may need to be reevaluated. I think any of these that, for the time being, are not being banned, as long as you're going to say maybe 5 years down the line that yes, we got this wrong. We have. It's very possible that this is too good. We need to we need to ban these in CC and or Blitz. I understand. Um, James says we acknowledge the following changes today. There are still some matchups in Classic Constructed that have polarizing play experiences. For some of those classes, such as Guardian and Warrior, there are cards in upcoming products that we believe will help them wrestle back some points in those matchups. Well, we know we're getting the Mastery Pass Guardian set. So, what's Warrior getting? interesting. For Blitz, we are taking some time to look at the format more holistically and consider a number of possible changes that could be implemented prior to the next skirmish season that begins on November 30th. In the coming weeks, I'll be discussing these changes and the bright future ahead of us in a podcast with senior designer and lead developer Brian Gottlieb. We invite you to join us on the official Flesh and Blood YouTube channel. Um, Farewells are always hard. We know there are many fans who really enjoy playing some of those cards we banned today, particularly Art of War, which has been an iconic part of Flesh and Blood over the past 5 years. I'm sorry that good thing has to come to an end in Classic Constructed and Blitz. However, the legacy of those iconic cards and your chance to keep playing them lives on in Living Legend format. Living Legend is a format we are putting our support behind, as seen by our inclusion in Skirmish Season 9, currently running, and again in Skirmish Season 10 later this year, in addition to its debut as a calling format on December 14th and 15th. Living Legend is the home for the most powerful heroes and cards created, and is where you will be able to continue to play these iconic cards for many years to come. The next banned and restricted announcement will be on Monday, November the 11th, so that's a week after Worlds 2024 United States time. So I think they understand that what they have done as far as um, the you can only block so much, right? You only have so many cards in hand that you can slow down your opponent's output. And I think that's where the problem lies. I'm all for offensive decks. I typically play Ninja, Brute, and Runeblade. Runeblade because it's mixed damage. They can go wide, they can build up and hit you with a bunch of rune chants, etc. Uh, Ninjas are a go wide deck. Brutes can hit you hard with a single attack, or they can hit you with multiple attacks in a turn. So it really varies with them as well. Um, and that's why I like those classes. Um, so I understand there does need to be defensive measures, and we want games to end and not be fatigued. I guess that's the other thing. So I'm glad that LSS is willing to make changes, stand up and say, "Hey, we messed up. These are the design tenets that we wanted. We went past that. Um, we're reevaluating how our design and development teams are working on certain things so that this doesn't happen in the future. And this is what we're doing to change this now." So um, I'm happy for where the future of Flesh and Blood is headed. Um, for the rest of you, leave a comment uh, down below on what you agree with, what you disagree with. What would you have changed? Would there be other bands that you would have done that don't fit with these core design principles? And then also let me know below if you're going to be in Tampa this weekend. I will be there for the Wool premiere, and I'm excited to meet as many of you as I possibly can. Just know that I will probably be playing something toxic because this is the last chance for me to play Bonds, and I will probably play Katsu Bonds combo in Living Legend because YOLO. Like I said, Katsu was my first hero, and the reason that I fell in love with Flesh and Blood to begin with. So if you see me in Living Legend, be prepared to be comboed. I'm sorry. Until next time, no matter the game, there is no escape from the tiger.